first million of euro tax-free, 100% tax-free.
So 1 million euros absolutely tax-free per
Zero.
member.
Per member.
Inheritance in Spain is one of the most complicated subjects for buyers, families, and investors. Today, we're going to be unraveling what it's all about. Inheritance in Spain can change autonomy and region to region, the taxes that have to be paid, and how inheritance happens, how properties and assets pass from generation to generation. In today's Expert Talks, we're here joined by Miguel Manzanares, and we're going to unravel absolutely everything you need to know about inheritances in Spain. By the end of this video, you'll be an expert. Are you ready? Let's go. Welcome back to the channel.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
You're always welcome on here, and I'm always happy to have you, join us to give us your expert advice on this.
Thank you so much.
Are you ready to talk about inheritances?
Yes, of course. Yes.
So, is it me, or is inheritance just complicated in every single country?
Well, it could be a complicated matter because it combines different elements. By one side, you have the element of the law governing inheritance process. Then you have taxation, sometimes heavy taxations to be faced on emotional time of the family. So therefore, if you combine the two complicated matters, like a complicated law governing rules of inheritance, emotional side of it, and also sometimes heavy taxes to be paid, then of course it's really a kind of controverted and complex matter to be handled.
Miguel, can you explain us sort of the basics of inheritance in Spain?
Well, this tax, as well as wealth tax, is a tax that was somehow delegated to every region of Spain, called autonomía. Sometimes we can even say that an autonomía has the capacity and ability to regulate and produce legislation in a bigger way than certain states of certain countries. We are 17 different regions of Spain. The region where we are in Andalucía is one of the largest. In fact, in the geography is the second largest, but by population is the largest. So we can combining the size of the region and the population is the biggest one in Spain by far, and therefore Andalucía has a regulation that has been passing through very heavy taxation when inheritance to a situation that is very welcome and is very soft, low taxation region of Spain. Andalucía, we are proud to say that together with Madrid, we are living in the region of Spain with the lowest potential taxation when you leave a property to your family. So therefore we can talk about Andalucía more specifically.
Would you say, like, sort of high level, because a lot of people that watch this video are, maybe planning to invest in Spain, buying a property in Spain, or relocate to Spain. But let's just sort of talk about the relocators and investors. Like, is there a difference between, residents and non-residents at this moment when it comes to inheritances in Andalusia?
When you leave a property, there is no difference. Of course, in that sense, we got to analyze where your family member that died or passed away, where he was resident at the point of the death. So that's really the key thing. Supposing that someone is resident in Madrid, we have to respect the rules of inheritance according to the region of Madrid. Oh. If your father or mother used to be a resident in Barcelona, we have to respect the rules of inheritance according to the place of residency of the day of death of your father or mother in that case, right? So therefore, because we can of course face several different possibilities. You can imagine we are facing a possibility towards our international audience of someone that is non-resident in Spain at the time of the death. And consequently, the properties that are located in Spain need to follow a procedure, and this is what the process of inheritance is like. It's a procedure that has to be complete, has to be ideally complete, but can be also initiated 6 months after the day of the decease, and also in respect of the payment of the taxes as well, the same kind of deadline, 6 months after that.
So walk us through the process. So, for example, you've had a relative that lives in Spain, or let's say resident in Andalucía, in Malaga, and this person passes away. What's the process? How do you get things rolling? I mean, I'm sure it's not only properties, it's properties, cars, assets, everything they own. What's the first thing you do?
I'm going to try to make it simple. First thing that we need to know if whether that person has already left a testament,
a will,
last will in Spain. And for that purpose, with a death certificate, we apply to a central registry in Madrid, where was the last will. And we say the last will because you can make a will today, but you tomorrow change of mind, you think about something else or something different, you forgot to include in that will something, and then you can go to any notary in Spain, it can also be internationally, to make another will that will invalidate the previous one or previous ones you have, and that will be the one in force. So therefore, with this certificate, or this, we can say, central registry, registro de actos de última voluntad. So basically we go to that registry to say where was the last will made. Say it was made in Barcelona, okay, or in Madrid, or in Malaga. It doesn't have to be the notary where you leave your will, doesn't have to be the place where you have your assets. It could be anywhere in Spain. You are in Coruña, and then you that day you wanna leave. You have a very clear vision of how to leave everything, and you can go to a notary and make your will there, and that will be governing everything you have in Spain, independently of where the assets are. Could be in Andalucía, Madrid, whatever. So therefore, you go with death certificate to know where was the will. If there was a will, we have to follow the rules that have been decided to govern the inheritance. And in that moment, it's very common that in a couple that you leave to the other spouse and vice versa, and then after that to the children or eventually grandchildren, etc. So if you follow that rule, then we have to you can prepare the process of the inheritance declaration. In that way, you know that you got to comply with that obligation, with that deadline of 6 months, and within that same time frame you have to pay your taxes. If we think, okay, these are the assets in Andalucía, how are the taxes? Having suffered a very strong taxation in that sense, we in Andalucía are celebrating a quite low level of taxation, because each one of your family members that receive assets or something in inheritance will have first million of euro tax-free, 100% tax-free.
So 1 million euros absolutely tax-free per member.
Per member. You have three children, each one of them tax-free. You have your spouse, 1 million euro tax-free, each one of them. So you can leave 4 million euros that's divided in between 4 heirs. Each one of them will have the first million of euro in value of assets, cars, bank accounts, whatever, tax-free, the first million euro. And then after that, you apply. This is because they are considered in the group number 1 and number 2. The group number 1 and number 2 in inheritance taxation are spouse or civil partners, children as well. Under 21 or above 21 years old, they are all in the group number 1 and number 2, spouse or civil partners and children. Everybody has first million euro with 0 euro taxes.
Exempt.
And then after that you apply the taxation that is from 7%, but after calculation of the taxes is 7 to 26% is the top rate. But after all the calculation of the taxes, there is a 99% tax exemption for that group number 1 and number 2. So therefore, this will live like then your first million euro is out of the equation, and then only after that we start calculating according to a sliding scale, bracket by bracket, from 7 to 26%. But when you go to the final calculation of your tax bill, 99% of it is free, and you only pay 1% of that tax bill. So therefore, groups number 1 and groups number 2 helped by the first million, 100% free. and then helped by a final exemption of the tax bill at 99%.
So it's practically nothing.
It's practically nothing. We cannot say categorically nothing because someone can say after several millions receiving, Miguel, I have 400 euro to pay. Of course, so I cannot really say nothing. But we have a saying in our legal business, which is really pocket money, for those ones that are in the group number 1 and group number 2. So it's important that you make a will in Spain, because the process is very quick, the process is very easy. There is no question about who is receiving the assets. If the group number 1 and group number 2, so a spouse, children, are really very well determined in the will, they know already. So the process of opening up the will and making the inheritance declaration and registration is quite straightforward, and everyone will face pocket money taxes, if any. Sometimes you have to, because that depends on the number of people that are receiving assets and the value of the properties in Spain that are given. But most likely it's going to be 0, and if passing, it's going to be very, very little. So that's really what we are celebrating. After we had a very heavy taxation going to more than 30%, now we have, in the very most of the cases, very low tax bills to pay.
So we'll leave in the description of this video a link to a site that will basically outline all the different taxations and different rates for Spain. We'll also obviously link your law firm in case anyone does want to get in touch with Manzanares Abogados to understand, their situation. My question, Miguel, is what happens if you don't have a will?
Why people don't have a will?
Yeah, what happens if you don't have a will? Well, you haven't made a will.
Well, if you don't have a will, we have to follow the process of the inheritance, and therefore we have to count on the will that was made at the country of residency. We are supposing that that person is not resident in Spain, but it's got to be a national of a country and resident on that country, and therefore we have to follow that inheritance. Very possibly there is a will made at the country of that person, and therefore we have to follow that process, because what makes the will is really kind of independent process of inheritance in Spain, not really necessarily linked to that one of where the client is coming from. So therefore the process becomes independent, quick, straightforward. If there was no a will in Spain, we have to respect what kind of testament and wishes are left in that testament that was made in UK, or Holland, or whatever it is.
Okay, let's just say that there's no will whatsoever in their home country. This once happened to one of our clients, like it was a few years ago. It was 0. What happens? Yeah,
therefore you have to follow the probate and basically the inheritance in the country, and that country will determine
the country of the origin.
Yeah.
So not Spanish.
Not the Spanish.
So basically, if you're English, the English inheritance law. What's the word I'm looking for when you die without a will? It's
sorry.
There's a technical word when you die without a will. It's
there is when you have the sucesión con ab intestato o con sucesión testamentaria.
I'm just looking for the English word, but it'll come to me later.
It's really there is no word in Spain. It's really Latin word ab intestato. So it's really like something more of the Roman law concept. So that's the way it is called.
Ab intestato.
Ab intestato.
So the country of origin, not Spain. So if you're Norwegian and you don't have a will either, in Spain or in Norway, you will follow the inheritance rules of that country.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And once this is all determined, then we have to follow the will. In respect of taxation, operates same kind of level of exemptions that I said, the first million and on the following, but in respect of the process can sometimes, and most of the times, take very much longer, because you have to conclude the whole process and produce all the legal validity of the conclusion of that process and get the translation and get the apostille from The Hague and the number of documents. This is really complicated because sometimes the Spanish system does not expect you to exceed 6 months' time. But maybe in your country, 6 months' time is really short time frame. So therefore, it's a very stressful situation, because you have to pay taxes and you didn't conclude yet who is going to receive what property and in which level of percentage they will receive. You know it, but you don't have the certifications and the legal valid documents in Spain to go and pay the corresponding taxes. So it's quite stressful because you are supposed to conclude everything in 6 months' time, but at your country, everything is in the middle of the process, right? So we insist very much on the importance of making a will in Spain. Make sure that you have a straightforward, valid, independent process. Doesn't have to be linked to your country, and the properties that you have in Spain can be sold or can be rented out. And if you need to have a bank account, the bank account doesn't have to be frozen for a long time, and you can have access to that to operate and keep the ongoing expenses of the property, like a gardener and a cleaning and so on, because maybe your parents have money in Spain and there is a bank account there. You can cover everything, but your bank account is not accessible because the process of inheritance has not been concluded, and you are depending on a third country conclusion. So this is all very complicated. Without a will, this is all very straightforward and easy with a Spanish will.
So advice is, when you buy a property, just make a will. It's very easy. How long does it take and how much does it cost? It's very straightforward.
It's costing around 300 euros. So it's very inexpensive. I would say it's one of the most inexpensive legal formalities that you can do in Spain, and saves you a lot of hassle, a lot of time if you make a will. So we remind at Manzanares Lawyers every single time that there is a deal, the importance, we highlight how important is to leave a will in place, and therefore no complications, and
sort of like avoid the headache for your heirs. Basically, just sign it, done. It'll be registered at the Registro Última Voluntades, and finished.
Yeah, exactly. So that is something that when you make a will, the notary himself or herself will automatically communicate to that central registry, this is my will, this is the last will, and they register, and this is registered that you did in Marbella in front of the notary, whoever, a will today on 29th of September 25, and that is registered. So therefore, at the point that the person passed away, then you request, where was that? You go to that notary office, you get the last will, you read the will, and you follow the process.
Okay, so within 6 months it should be done. How long does it actually take for everything to be sort of, not sort of registered, but also practically for when can you expect the properties to be in your name? When can you expect sort of to have access to the bank accounts? What can you expect? So the practicalities, how long does it take?
In around 2 months to 3 months, if you have a will in Spain, everything should be ready.
Okay, so it's pretty straightforward then. 3
Very
months.
straightforward.
Miguel, we've had, for example, I've had clients that instead of, buying the property in their own name, right? This happened more previously than it happens now, but they actually go ahead and buy it from the get-go in the kid's name in order to avoid inheritances down the line. What's your take on that?
I would say there was a time, there was a tendency of doing this and prevent how my inheritance is like. It's like a kind of a will, but instead of making a will, you do in your life, I'm gonna put this property under the name of my daughter or my boy or whatever, and to avoid having to pay heavy inheritance tax in the future. But today, that is not necessary anymore. Because the inheritance tax has become almost zero for your children and for your spouse. Let's remind
in Andalucia.
In Andalucia, the first million, we say, is tax-free, and then after the first million, you apply all the corresponding sliding scale, and after the final tax bill is calculated, 99% of it is exempt, and 1% of that is what you pay. So it's so little what you have to pay that having to give away the ownership of the property to your children is a kind of number one, it's not necessary, because what your children will pay in the future is possibly nothing or pocket money. And number two, you give away as well the ownership of the property, so you don't have the legal control of that property anymore. Whenever you decided to sell the property, you have to count with the approval of your children. And we know how life is like. So one day your children love you, and one day your children hate you. So therefore, maybe at the point that you decided to sell that property, is at the point in which your children disagree with you about the sale of that property. So then putting a property under the name of the children gives away the control of the ownership of the property. This is number one. And number two, if you did it, you're not avoiding any taxes, because that the inheritance tax of that property, as long as you leave it to group number 1 and 2, that remind it is a spouse and children, is going to be tending to zero. So that is not a good idea anymore. Maybe spreading the ownership of the property in between different owners is something that we can do about other type of tax, which is the wealth tax. Because sometimes you have the value of a property that divided in between one owner, you activate the wealth tax, and divided in between 3 co-owners, maybe none of them are pay wealth tax. But for the purpose of mitigating inheritance tax, I don't see the point at all.
So by the way, on the wealth tax, we will leave a link here to the left so you guys can check it out. We did a whole video with Miguel on wealth tax and solidarity tax. If you want to know what it's all about, click that link. Miguel, thank you so much for coming on here. It's been a really interesting chat. I've learned something new, and I hope you guys have as well. Perfect way to end this video. So thanks, Miguel, for joining. We look forward to having you on again. And to you guys watching this video, thanks for watching. And if you found this content useful, please press that button, like this video, and like always, if you have any questions for ourselves at High Homes or for Miguel himself, you can comment those below. We'll leave Miguel's law firm in the description of this video so you guys can click in and contact one of his team. And like always, if you are new to this space and you've never come across us at High Homes before, click that button and subscribe to the High Homes YouTube channel, and you'll stay posted with information regarding Spanish real estate, property news, property developments, and everything you'll need in your Spanish property journey. So until next time, guys, hasta luego.
Adiós, gracias.